Do you ever hear that voice inside your head, the one that whispers, you're not good enough? It's there when you wake up, when you try to rest, when you look in the mirror and think, I should be further ahead by now. You've accomplished things. You've tried. You've worked hard, but somehow it never feels like enough. That quiet voice of self-criticism can feel like an endless echo. And if you're honest, you've probably lived with it for years. But what if you could finally silence it? What if you could stop being so hard on yourself and start treating yourself with the same compassion you offer everyone else? In this video, we're going to explore exactly how to do that, inspired by the wisdom of Brendon Burchard, one of the world's leading high-performance coaches. And here's the twist. Even the most successful people, the ones who look unstoppable on the outside, struggle with the same battle on the inside. Brendon says something most people never hear. Being hard on yourself doesn't mean you're weak. It means you care. You care about doing well. You care about becoming more. That voice of not enough usually comes from knowing that deep down you're capable of so much more. The problem isn't the drive. It's the way you talk to yourself while chasing your potential. Think about it. You wouldn't talk to your best friend the way you talk to yourself when you make a mistake, would you? You wouldn't call them a failure or tell them they'll never make it. Yet every day, you might say those same words to the person in the mirror. The truth is, being too hard on yourself doesn't make you stronger. It quietly wears you down. It steals your energy, clouds your focus, and makes joy feel like something you haven't earned. But here's the good news. It can change. You can still be ambitious without being abusive to yourself. You can chase greatness without sacrificing peace of mind. In this video, you'll learn why we become our own harshest critics, even when we're doing our best. How this constant self-judgment actually blocks your growth instead of pushing you forward. The mindset shift Brendon calls integrating your goodness. Learning to see, acknowledge, and celebrate what's already good about you. 5 simple habits that can help you speak to yourself with more respect, compassion, and confidence. And finally, a short daily routine that rewires how you treat yourself so you can perform better and feel better. Stay till the end, because I'm going to share one powerful insight that Brendon says most people completely miss, and it changes the way you see every mistake you've ever made. This video isn't about ignoring your flaws or pretending everything's perfect. It's about learning to build yourself up instead of breaking yourself down. It's about replacing judgment with awareness and guilt with growth. So if you're tired of that voice that says you're never enough, this is your moment to change it. Welcome to Habits of Greatness. If you're ready to start being kinder to yourself and still chase your highest potential, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon, because today your new chapter begins. Let's begin. Before we talk about the solution, let's face the problem head on. Because if you've ever caught yourself saying, I should have done better, or why can't I get this right, you're not alone. Most people think being hard on themselves is just a sign of ambition or discipline, but it's not. It's something deeper. It's a habit, a pattern, and sometimes even a form of quiet self-punishment that we've carried for years without realizing it. Being hard on yourself doesn't just mean holding high standards. It means expecting perfection all the time. It's that constant inner pressure to always do more, achieve more, and prove more. It's waking up with the feeling that no matter how much you did yesterday, it still wasn't enough. It shows up in subtle ways too. You replay conversations and pick apart every word. You look at your work and focus only on what's missing. You compare yourself to others who seem to be moving faster, smiling wider, or achieving more. And each time you do, your mind quietly whispers, see, you're still behind. But here's what Brendon Burchard reminds us. There's a difference between being driven and being destructive. The driven person aims high but allows space to grow. The destructive one turns ambition into self-abuse. When you constantly judge yourself, your energy turns inward. Instead of building momentum, you drain it. Instead of learning, you criticize. And slowly you stop trying new things because you're terrified of failing again. This is the silent trap of self-criticism. It pretends to motivate you, but it actually holds you back. It makes you think you're improving. But what you're really doing is tightening the knot of pressure around your own mind. Studies in high-performance psychology, something Brendon often talks about, show that people who practice self-compassion are actually more consistent, more resilient, and more productive than those who are harsh on themselves. That might sound counterintuitive, but it's true. Compassion doesn't weaken. performance. It sustains it. Because when you stop attacking yourself, your brain stops wasting energy on guilt and fear. It starts focusing on creativity, solutions, and courage. Think about it. When you make a mistake, what happens next? Most of us go into full self-judgment mode. How could I be so stupid? I always mess things up. I'll never get it right. That mental loop doesn't teach us anything. It just keeps us stuck in shame. But the people who rise fastest after failure don't shame themselves. They learn, they review what happened, extract the lesson, and move forward. Brendon calls this emotional awareness, a form of maturity, the ability to observe yourself without destroying yourself. To say, yes, I made a mistake, but that doesn't mean I'm broken. It's the line between growth and guilt, between excellence and exhaustion. And the truth is, being hard on yourself doesn't just hurt your performance, it chips away at your mental health. Every harsh word you think creates a small wound. Over time, those wounds turn into beliefs. Beliefs like, I'm not enough. I don't deserve rest. If I stop pushing, I'll fall behind. These are lies your mind repeats so often that they start to sound like truth. Soon you start living in constant comparison. You look at others and think, they've got it figured out. I should be like them. But what you don't see is their own battle with self-doubt. Brendon says this all the time. Even high achievers, the ones who seem unstoppable, struggle with self-criticism. They hit goals and the next second they're asking, what's next? Why don't I feel fulfilled? That's the cost of being endlessly hard on yourself. You achieve, but you never arrive. You grow, but you never feel good enough to enjoy it. And here's the dangerous part. When that mindset becomes your default, it doesn't just affect you. It affects your relationships. Because when you constantly feel unworthy, it's hard to believe others could truly love or respect you. You begin to withdraw. You become distant, defensive, or overly apologetic. You start reading rejection where it doesn't exist. Maybe you've noticed it. Someone gives you a compliment, and instead of accepting it, you shrug it off. Someone tells you they're proud of you, and you say, it was nothing. That's not humility. That's hidden self-rejection. You've trained your mind to dismiss goodness, even when it's right in front of you. Brendon often says that what makes people most unhappy isn't failure, it's the inability to recognize their own goodness. When you can't see the value you bring, you live in a constant state of almost confident, almost happy, almost fulfilled, but never quite there. And that pressure starts to shape how you live. You overwork, trying to prove your worth through effort. You overthink, trying to control outcomes that were never in your hands. You hold back your emotions because vulnerability feels like weakness. And slowly, the spark inside you dims. Not because you failed, but because you forgot to give yourself permission to be human. What's even more striking is that self-criticism often disguises itself as discipline. You tell yourself, I'm just being real, I'm keeping myself accountable. But accountability without compassion turns into cruelty. You end up punishing yourself for every misstep, expecting perfection in a world that doesn't work that way. That's why Brendon emphasizes the balance between challenge and care. You need high standards to grow, yes, but you also need self-respect to sustain that growth. Without it, you burn out, you stop taking risks, you stop dreaming, because deep down, you believe you don't deserve the outcome, even if you earn it. And when that belief runs deep, it colors everything. It affects how you show up at work, afraid to share ideas unless they're flawless. It affects your health, because rest feels like weakness. It affects your joy, because happiness feels undeserved. Being hard on yourself feels noble at first. It feels like commitment, but in reality, it's a form of quiet sabotage. You end up becoming your own obstacle. The voice that was meant to motivate you becomes the one that tears you down. The irony, you don't need to eliminate ambition. You just need to change the tone of that inner voice. You need to move from critic to coach, from punisher to partner, from what's wrong with me to what can I learn from this. Because self-compassion isn't about lowering standards, it's about creating the space to rise higher without breaking. It's about understanding that growth is messy and mistakes are not the opposite of progress. They're proof of it. So before we talk about the tools and steps that can help you stop being so hard on yourself, take a breath. Realize this. The problem isn't that you want to be better. The problem is that you forgot to appreciate who you already are while trying to get there. And when you finally start doing that, when you begin to notice your efforts, honor your intentions, and recognize your quiet wins, that's when life begins to feel lighter again. That's when growth becomes joyful, not painful. That's when you finally stop surviving your potential and start living it. Why do we become so hard on ourselves? It's not random. It's not a personality flaw. It's something we learn, something we absorb, and something we repeat, often without realizing it. From a young age, most of us were taught that success equals worth. We were praised for performance, not presence, for grades, not growth, for doing things right, not for trying with heart. Slowly, this conditioning created an invisible rule inside us. If I'm not perfect, I'm not enough. These internalized standards follow us everywhere. They live in how we work, how we love, and how we see ourselves in the mirror. The moment we fall short, even slightly, that old program switches on. We start replaying the same self-critical messages that once kept us chasing approval from teachers, parents, or society. The voice might sound like yours, but it was never truly yours to begin with. It's a collection of echoes from the past, shaped by expectation. Brendon Burchard often says, "You're hard on yourself because you know what you could be, and there's truth in that. You sense your own potential. You see glimpses of who you could become. But instead of inspiring you, that vision can sometimes turn into a weapon. You start comparing your present self to your ideal self and find only the gap between them. That gap becomes painful. You begin to measure your worth by how close you are to a version of you that doesn't even exist yet. And behind that gap hides fear. Fear of failure. Fear of disappointing others. Fear of wasting your potential. You start believing that being tough on yourself is the only way to stay disciplined. You convince yourself that self-criticism equals self-improvement. But it doesn't. It's like trying to grow a plant by shouting at it. You might get activity, but you'll never get bloom. This is what Brendon calls the all-or-nothing mindset. It's the belief that you either do something perfectly or you've failed completely. There's no middle ground. You're either proud or ashamed, victorious or worthless. And in that narrow space, there's no room for real growth. Because the moment you stumble, your mind doesn't say, "I'm learning." It says, "I've lost." Over time, this constant inner battle takes its toll. Emotionally, it drains you. You start living under a constant cloud of guilt for not being enough, shame for not doing enough, anxiety for what might go wrong next. It feels like you're always behind, always fixing, always proving, and when your mind is filled with judgment, peace has nowhere to land. Then comes burnout. You push harder, hoping to silence the voice by achieving more. But no achievement ever feels satisfying enough, because your brain is trained to skip the celebration and go straight to the next flaw. You finish a project, but instead of joy, you feel emptiness. You get praise, but you brush it off. You rest for a moment, and guilt immediately creeps in, whispering that you should be doing more. This emotional weight also leads to practical consequences. The more critical you are, the less creative you become. When your mind is afraid of making mistakes, it stops taking risks. You start avoiding new challenges, even the ones that could move you forward. You hesitate to try because trying might mean failing, and failing means more self-punishment. It's not that you lack ability. It's that your fear of imperfection keeps you from using it fully. You spend more time overthinking than acting. You second-guess your instincts. You become paralyzed by the idea of doing something wrong, so you do nothing at all. And the cycle continues. Brendon talks about something powerful that breaks this pattern. He calls it integrating your wins. It means taking the time to acknowledge the good you've done, no matter how small it seems, because if you only ever focus on what's missing, you stay stuck in self-critique. You never give your mind proof that you're growing, even when you are. Think about it. Every day, you make choices that reflect strength, patience, or kindness. But you rarely stop to see them. You focus on what didn't happen, what you didn't say right, what you didn't finish. When you ignore your wins, your brain keeps building evidence that you're failing. But when you integrate them, when you consciously notice and name the good you do, you begin to rewire that belief system. You teach your mind that progress exists, that you're not just trying, you're evolving. This shift is where self-compassion enters the picture. It's not a soft or indulgent idea. It's strength in its purest form. Brendon reminds us that greatness doesn't come from punishment. It comes from care. You can't build confidence by attacking yourself. You build it by supporting yourself, especially when you fall short. Self-compassion means choosing kindness in the moments you used to choose judgment. It means saying, I made a mistake, but I'm still worthy. It's recognizing that growth takes time and that falling isn't the end. It's proof that you're moving. And the key to this shift is small, consistent acts of understanding, not overnight transformation. You don't wake up one day and magically stop being self-critical. You retrain your mind moment by moment. You start noticing when you're being harsh and you catch it. You start questioning the tone of your inner voice. You start treating yourself the way you treat someone you love. The first practical step is simple but powerful. Track your self-critic voice. Pay attention to when it shows up. What are you doing? What are you thinking? What exact words come out in your mind? You might be surprised at how often that inner critic speaks. Write it down or record a quick voice memo. Don't judge what you find. Just observe. The goal is awareness, because you can't change what you don't notice. Once you begin to see the pattern, move to the second step, ask better questions. The quality of your self-talk determines the quality of your growth. Instead of asking, why am I such a failure? Ask, what did I try today? Instead of why can't I do this? Ask, what can I learn from this? It sounds small, but it's revolutionary. Brendon often points out that growth doesn't happen from criticism, it happens from curiosity. When you replace judgment with curiosity, your energy shifts from fear to possibility. You stop attacking yourself for what went wrong and start appreciating what went right, even the tiny wins. And here's a powerful mindset to keep with you. Recognize not only what you did today, but what you didn't do, especially the things you could have done that might have hurt your values. Maybe you chose patience instead of anger. Maybe you stayed kind when you could have been cold. Those invisible wins matter just as much. They're proof that you're growing in character, not just in action. The more you practice this, the more you'll notice something changing. The self-critic won't disappear overnight, but it will soften. It will start losing its grip, because every time you acknowledge your wins, big or small, you're reminding yourself that you're capable, that you're evolving, and that you're enough, even as you grow. You don't have to choose between excellence and empathy. You can hold yourself to high standards while still being gentle. You can chase greatness and still honor your humanity. Brendon's message is clear. The path to high performance isn't paved with self-hate. It's built on self-respect. And when you start walking that path, everything changes. Your work feels lighter. Your creativity expands. Your relationships deepen. And most importantly, that quiet voice in your head, the one that used to say, not enough, starts whispering something new. It starts saying, you're doing your best, and that's worth everything. Now let's talk about what it really means to hold yourself to high standards and to do it with kindness. Excellence is powerful. It's the fuel that drives growth, creativity, and purpose. But perfectionism, that's a different story. Perfectionism is excellence twisted by fear. It's the belief that if you're not flawless, you're failing. And that mindset doesn't create greatness. It suffocates it. Brendon Burchard often reminds us that excellence should lift you, not punish you. Excellence is about progress, moving forward, refining, evolving. Perfectionism, on the other hand, is a moving target you can never reach. It's running a race that has no finish line. It's chasing approval instead of purpose. So how do you shift from perfection to excellence? You start by setting kinder standards. That means standards based on your values, not on comparison or fear. Instead of trying to live up to everyone's expectations, you define what matters most to you, because without clarity about your own values, you end up chasing someone else's version of success. Brendon says, clarity is power, but it's not just about goals, it's about identity. It's asking yourself, who am I becoming? What do I stand for? What truly matters in my life? When you answer those questions honestly, your standards begin to change. You stop measuring your worth by how fast you move, how perfect you look, or how much you achieve. You start measuring it by alignment, by how much your actions reflect your true values. Maybe one of your values is growth. Then your standard should be about learning, not never failing. Maybe one of your values is kindness. Then your standard becomes, did I act with compassion today, not did I make everyone happy? To keep this alignment strong, Brendon suggests doing a weekly check-in. It doesn't have to be long or complicated. Just sit down once a week and ask yourself 3 simple questions. Did I live by my values this week? Did I honor my effort even if the results weren't perfect? What can I adjust next week to feel more aligned? This small ritual builds awareness. It keeps you grounded in what's real, not what's impossible. It reminds you that your worth isn't tied to endless achievement. It's reflected in the consistency of your effort and the integrity of your choices. Now, there's another step that most people skip, and it's one of Brendon's most important lessons. Celebrate your wins and integrate them. He says, you'll never feel like you matter unless you integrate your own goodness. Think about that for a moment. Most of us are so focused on fixing ourselves that we never pause to recognize what's already good. We brush off compliments. We downplay our progress. We move from one task to the next without letting success sink in. Over time, this creates an emotional emptiness, a feeling that no matter what we do, it's never enough. Integrating your wins doesn't mean bragging or becoming complacent. It means allowing yourself to feel your progress, to say, yes, I did that. It's about reinforcing the belief that you are capable, that your effort matters, and that you're growing. Brendon teaches that when you don't take time to celebrate your goodness, your brain forgets the evidence of success. It keeps chasing validation, thinking that fulfillment is somewhere in the next goal, the next achievement, the next milestone. But when you acknowledge what you've done well, even the small things, your mind begins to relax. It starts to believe, I'm not failing, I'm evolving. A simple way to do this is through what Brendon calls a win log. Every evening, take a minute to write down one thing you did well today and one thing you chose not to do. Something that reflects restraint, patience, or self-control. Maybe you didn't send that angry text. Maybe you showed up for a friend. Maybe you just got out of bed and faced a tough day. Those are wins. They deserve recognition. This habit may sound small, but it rewires your thinking. Over time, you build an internal record of strength and goodness. You start trusting yourself more. You stop depending so much on outside approval. You begin to feel grounded because your sense of progress comes from within, not from comparison. And then comes the final shift, compassion for your future self and present self. This is the bridge between who you are and who you're becoming. Because growth always includes mistakes, setbacks, and detours. The question is, how do you treat yourself when those happen? Most people treat mistakes like evidence of failure. But what if they're actually feedback? What if every misstep is just information, a signpost showing you what's next to learn? Brendon says that high performers aren't perfect, they're simply kinder to themselves while learning. They fall, but they don't call themselves failures. They get up, analyze what happened, and move forward with more wisdom. To practice compassion for your future self, start by talking to yourself like you would talk to a close friend. If your friend came to you upset after making a mistake, you wouldn't say, you're hopeless. You'd say, it's okay, you'll do better next time. Learn from this. That's exactly how you need to talk to yourself. And here's the deeper layer. Don't just forgive your past self. Root for your future one. Visualize the person you're becoming. Encourage them. Speak life into them. Say things like, I'm proud of how far I've come. I know I'll handle what's next. When you do this, you begin to live with optimism instead of fear. You replace pressure with purpose. Because here's the truth. Compassion doesn't make you soft. It makes you strong enough to keep going. It's the foundation of resilience. Without it, every mistake feels like the end. With it, every mistake becomes a stepping stone. Now, if you want a way to keep all of this alive in your daily life, Brendon suggests a simple mini routine. A few small moments of awareness each day that keep you aligned, compassionate, and grounded. In the morning, take 1 minute to check your mindset. Ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be today? Set an intention around one value, patience, courage, kindness, and let that guide your choices. In the middle of the day, pause for a moment, of self-compassion. Check in with yourself. Ask, am I being kind to myself right now? If the answer is no, reset. Take a breath. Remember that progress doesn't require punishment. And then finish with your win log. Write one win, one kind act, one moment of integrity. It doesn't matter how small it seems. It matters that you saw it, because awareness of goodness builds inner peace. This daily rhythm isn't about becoming soft or lazy. It's about becoming sustainably strong. Strength isn't just about how much you can endure, it's about how well you can recover. It's about maintaining energy, clarity, and compassion for the long journey ahead. When you start living this way, setting kinder standards, celebrating your wins, and treating your future self with care, you stop fighting against yourself. You stop living in constant tension. You start moving with flow, with grace, and with confidence. And every small act of kindness you give yourself becomes a brick in the foundation of something greater, a life that's driven by purpose, not pressure. A life where excellence and peace finally coexist. So let's bring it all together. You've learned how to shift from being harsh to being kind, from chasing perfection to embracing progress, from ignoring your wins to recognizing your real value. This isn't about lowering your standards, it's about finally giving yourself the same respect, patience, and belief you give to everyone else. If you start these small steps today, noticing your self-talk, setting kinder standards, celebrating your wins, you'll feel something powerful begin to change. The pressure starts to fade. The voice that used to say, not enough, gets quieter, and in its place, a new one rises. Calm, confident, and kind. You deserve to feel proud of your effort. You deserve to feel worthy, even when you're still growing, because that's what real progress looks like. Not perfection, but presence. So here's your challenge. Pick just one step and try it tomorrow. Maybe it's writing down a win. Maybe it's catching a self-critical thought and replacing it with kindness. Maybe it's taking a breath before judging yourself. Do it once and see how it feels. And if this message resonated with you, take a moment to share in the comments what you'll start doing differently from today. Your words might inspire someone else who needs to hear this too. If you found value in this video, don't forget to like it. It really helps more people discover this message. And subscribe to Habits of Greatness for more insights inspired by Brendon Burchard and other leaders who believe in living with purpose, compassion, and courage. Because the truth is, the moment you decide to treat yourself with kindness, that's the moment your greatness truly begins.